apparatus, our intelligence, and when Donald Rumsfeld went to Europe last year and was unhappy at the Europeans, one of the threats he made was, we won't give you the money to finish building the new NATO complex. And why would he have made that threat? And maybe there's been more than a hint that we really don't have all these European allies any longer.
No, I've never felt we do. I think pretty much that the United States is going to be alienated to the point where they are just about alone.
Well, I think that we may well be the one that we sit a queen and say, no harm will come to me.
Mm-hmm,
and then
exactly.
In day shall thy plagues come.
Yeah, and so we know that we know there's two beast positions. One's political, and the other one is political and economic.
Right.
It's got two horns, which signifies dual authority. And the thing that strikes me about the whole the false prophet and Antichrist scenario is that the false prophet is really the one with the brains. He's really the one that leads everything during the tribulation period, because he is the one that instigates and then enforces the legislation against the Christians, against the whole world.
That's going to be a nice collaborative effort between those guys.
Yeah.
Whoever it ends up being. And your guess is as good as mine, but this sure could be one educated guess.
Yeah. Well, I've always stood on the fact that one of them, I don't know which one of these beasts will be the president of Babylon, which is the United States.
If we're not, it's going to be very, well, sometimes I've wondered if we have a Christian, a president who allegedly is a Christian who speaks like a lamb,
mm-hmm.
and then makes everybody worship the other one.
Yeah, speaks like a lamb, but is a dragon. A dragon who speaks like a lamb.
An executive order the other day on the Western Balkans that was signed, an emergency Western order signed by our president in the year 2001. And if this thing wasn't drafted by Javier Solana, it was broad enough to encompass us talking against what is going on. It included the United Nations, NATO, its leaders, the supporting organizations, and it was basically about supporting the effort in the Western Balkans. So one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of World War II was Hitler failed to reduce the Balkans before taking on the United States and Russia. And right now the Balkans are reduced to the extent that the natives over there are sarcastically calling the place Solania, over Javier Solana.
Oh, I've seen that in his bio, the Solania link.
Yes, and that's been, and then the Balkans are reduced. They're answering to him, and the Christians in those countries are taking, right now, the Christians and their institutions are taking the very heaviest of persecution. Christian villages are without power, electricity, water cut off in many cases.
Yeah, and they're being slaughtered in China.
There was a priest and his son, and beaten by peacekeeper forces almost to a pulp. Pull up the pictures of them in the hospital, and going in there, and the claimed excuse was they thought they might have been hiding one of the wanted war criminals, but there hadn't been a shred of evidence on that, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, so Javier Solana is consolidating power behind the scenes?
Yes, and he's been consolidating power.
Yeah,
and now
but to come up against the United States,
somewhat of a Monroe Doctrine for Europe, that the entire world is kind of extended Europe.
And so they're all going to consolidate under him.
They're consolidating under him, and he has been building integration treaties around the world with countries. Basically, he has encircled us with treaties against us.
Does he have the power to enforce worldwide legislation?
He is getting that power rapidly, and he may already have it on a de jure level, or a de facto level, if not a de jure. He had the NATO, and he alone had the power to say when the bombs started and when the bombs stopped on NATO in 1999 over Yugoslavia. Then he was given extraordinary powers with the European Union and the Western European Union, their military arm. And that was in the year 1999. And 2000, his job was created with Section 666 of the Europa documents, and he proposed extended dictatorial powers over Europe for himself with Recommendation 666, which he introduced in the Western European Union Assembly on June 5th of the year 2000.
And he had a role.
He has been given the powers of the powerful new European foreign minister in advance of the new constitution even being ratified. He has a cabinet. Why would a foreign minister need a foreign minister? He has a foreign minister of his own, Robert Cooper, from England. He has a defense minister of his own, also from England. And he has many people, very capable people, have left to go join his Javier Solana's cabinet. You do a Google search in Javier Solana's cabinet, you'll yield some very interesting results. He's got a full-blown cabinet. He has the military arsenal of Europe. He basically has what is sitting on European turf that we put there, the NATO arsenal, pretty much is effectively under their control also. And I think that we are being set up for some potential disaster as the United States.
Okay, so, well, let's look in, though, because we're looking at him behind the scenes consolidating his own army, his own government sort of thing.
Yes, and he's been leading, but so far it's like small operations. He said, 60,000 peacekeepers and 400 battleships, so on and so forth.
Now, does the U.S.?
That's just starting, and basically they've already announced that all the European embassies are going to close down of all the countries. Like England won't have its ambassador anymore, neither will France, neither will Germany. Instead, it's going to be European Union ambassadors, like the United States has its ambassadors. They are all currently under Javier Solana. All the defense is under Javier Solana. All the military police powers are under Javier Solana. He is working the Middle East peace process, which is kind of where I came in. He had executed the treaty with Israel, and he was searching for a permanent solution for peace in the Middle East. And last summer, he told Ariel Sharon, when they didn't want the European Union involved in there, that like it or not, we're on board.
Now, does the United States surrender to him, or are we going to fight him out? Are we looking at...
I've read those passages many ways, and I guess I'm still seeing through glass darkly myself. And whether it's him or whether he's the forerunner of something else to come, at this point I'm not prepared fully to say, but my educated guess is it might be him. It just might be him.
There's no doubt he's a candidate. There's no doubt.
And the Bible codes were interesting, and again, this could be a fluke. I don't know. My own jury is still out. You might be even more convinced of them than I, and I'm not convinced at all. But on Solana, there were some very interesting things. I had a young man, a researcher from Novi, Michigan, named Kirk, contact me, and he said, you have to look at these Bible codes. And I said, I don't give them any credence whatsoever. He said, you have to look at this. And he said he had the software, the particular program he used was called Code Finder from Australia. It had the Greek New Testament text as well as the Hebrew text. And he said he thought he might find a clue or two as to the Antichrist's identity. And he said he ran all the usual suspects through and didn't come up with one single thing meaningful in anybody. And then he decided to run Javier Solana's name through. And he said he ran it through, and it came up on every last prophecy in the Bible on the Antichrist, not loose, tight like a crossword puzzle. And he was absolutely right, it does. I still look at it with my mouth open.
Yeah, and we went through that this afternoon.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, well, you asked me what other terms we put into search, and I said, you don't have to put any in. Just put in his name and see what prophecies cross it.
Yeah.
And every letter of his name runs through a separate line of the prophecy in 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, when his name runs through all three Gospels on Jesus talking about the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, and then in the Hebrew version, it runs right through that very passage, first and last name, in Daniel.
In Revelation 13:8.
And my thing is, hey, if God spoke once through Balaam's ass, and maybe he spoke, and maybe he spoke through Muammar Gaddafi one time. I don't know. I think God can speak to us anytime, any way He wants to, and just maybe that was done. The theory is that it was left there for a skeptical generation that wouldn't believe any other way.
Yeah. I think it's, I look at both of them.